What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your co-host Donovan Quick, and today we got a little special one for y'all. You know, it is officially the first game of the season. It is a preseason game, but guys, we got some things to look forward to today. So I'm going to talk about, you know, the position battles that are going on. And that being said, we're going to jump right into offense first, and then we're going to jump into defense a little bit later, so just bear with us. All right, right into the offense. The first position that we really need to look out for battle-wise is offensive guard. We still don't know the extent of Aaron Brewer's hand injury, so it's going to be key in watching this position battle play out, right? So we're going to look at the offensive guard position particularly, because Liam Eichenberg might shift over to center if the starters start, and that leaves right guard wide open for Lester Cotton, Jack Driscoll. Jack Driscoll also might be the potential center, as well as we have Mayer, the undrafted guy out of UNLV. He could be competing for this center spot as well. Possibly, you know, he's on the roster bubble. He's undrafted rookie. Very unlikely he makes it, but he still has a shot, and he's going to need to perform well. So it's going to be that interior offensive line that we really need to watch, particularly the right guard spot. And that's going to be key to the success of this season, honestly, because that's what really fell apart at the end of last season, was the interior offensive line playing with three backups at every single position there. I'm particularly looking forward to how Lester Cotton looks, because he hasn't looked that good in training camp rather. And neither is Jack Driscoll at the center position. So it's going to be interesting to see how well they do at snapping the ball, at pass protection, because all these guys are really built for run blocking, and all of them are pretty good at run blocking, which is why our run game, even when our pass game was abysmal, was always kind of decent, no matter, you know, how bad we were at being able to pass protect, because Tua had someone in his lap every other play when we were passing the ball. And we can't have that. We can't have Tua just having the pocket crumble on him, which is kind of the reason that he, you know, lost all that weight and became more mobile this offseason. But we want him to use that mobility as a last resort, not as you're going to be stuck with this offensive line, so you're going to need it kind of thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to looking at that position in particular. We're going to transition over to the wide receiver position, where it's basically wide open after Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. With the injuries to Odell, we don't know when he's going to be back. He's still on the PUP list. Is wide open. Berrios is still out. So you have Malik Washington, River Craycraft, Braylon Sanders, Willie Snead. We just signed Mike Hardy Jr. out of University of Miami. He was on Cleveland's practice squad last year. He's a bigger guy, but you know, this receiver position, I mean, it's wide open. It's for the taking with all the injuries that have happened. And, you know, even Waddle's banged up right now. So it's more than likely we're not going to see Tyreek, Waddle, Armstead, Tua at all in the first game of this preseason. But we're going to need to look out for that, you know, third receiver on. And that's something that we've really lacked over the past few seasons, was a consistent wide receiver three. Cedric Wilson had his spots last year where he was really good, but then he also had his really bad games where he couldn't get open no matter what. And we just can't have that. If we need someone that's need to go and produce when Waddle and Tyreek are not on the field and can also run block, and that's part of having that bigger body like Mike Hardy Jr., Braylon Sanders. River Craycraft has a bigger body. I know he doesn't really seem like it, but he's 6 foot 220. And it seems like Malik Washington and River Craycraft are really going at it. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch throughout the rest of the preseason, particularly today, because I don't think the starters are going to play much, if at all. And really quickly, we're going to go into the tight end position. It's basically locked down for the top two, Jonnu and Durham Smythe. There's really only spot for one left, maybe two, depending on how they build the roster. And it's most likely going to be Julian Hill, but it's going to be Julian Hill competing with Jody Fortson and Tanner Connor. Tanner Conner spent most of last year on IR. I believe he did make the initial roster, and then they cut Julian Hill and then brought him back once they put Tanner Conner on IR. And he was a good special teamer. And he's a really good receiver. He's a converted receiver to tight end because of his bigger body. So it's going to be interesting to see that position battle work its way through the preseason, because it's kind of going to be those bubble guys. And I do think it's going to be Julian Hill more than likely coming out on top. Jody Fortson just not consistent enough. Tanner Conner, I think, has the slight edge over Jody at the current moment. And with that being said, let's jump into the defense. First up, and probably the most important part on the defense, outside linebacker position is wide open for the taking. And you guys, if you guys watched my depth chart video, you saw Quentin Bell is the #1 outside linebacker currently on the roster. He's going to be starting opposite of Emmanuel Ogbah, but I'm not going to sit here and act like his spot isn't up for grabs. It completely is. If Chop Robinson or anybody else behind him want to go and get it, they still have the ability to do that. But currently with Chubb and Phillips sidelined, that position is just wide open for the taking, besides probably Ogbah's spot. But Ogbah's also not going to be sitting there for 50 snaps a game. So these guys are going to be competing for some serious playing time. So you have guys that, like Muhammad Kamara, who he's currently injured at the moment, so I'm not sure if he's going to play today. You also have, obviously, Chop Robinson, our first round pick. Quentin Bell, who has been a revelation, really, in training camp. You also have guys like Cam Brown, Grayson Murphy, and even Channing Tindall with the opportunity to go and show themselves on the outside. Channing Tindall, I know they've been working him slightly on the outside a little bit, mostly inside, which is his natural position, but he's going to need to show something throughout this preseason to be able to make the roster, because he's at the bottom of the depth chart currently at middle linebacker. So he's going to need to show something, some kind of spark, something to make this roster. And so he's going to have to move either outside or do something special inside, which it's going to be tight for him to make the roster, but it's still very possible. And with that being said, obviously, I think the ones that have the biggest impact are probably going to be Quentin Bell versus Chop Robinson. Quentin Bell, Chop Robinson, probably Grayson Murphy after that, and then Muhammad Kamara when he eventually comes back. After that, I think the second most important position battle really is going to be the cornerback position. And that's going to be really between Ethan Bonner, Nick Needham, Kader Kohu, and Cam Smith. Cam Smith currently came back from injury, then re-injured himself, so he's probably not going to play. We're probably not going to see him with the rest of the preseason. So it's going to be between Needham, Bonner, and Kader Kohu. Kader Kohu currently has the starting nickel position, but then you have after that a lot of question marks after the first three kind of almost solidified. And Ethan Bonner's really been showing up and showing out in preseason, or in training camp rather, and it's going to be interesting to see how that translates into the preseason. He did have a pretty decent playoff game when he did come in the late fourth quarter in that playoff game last year against Kansas City in the negative weather. But he's been greatly improved, and there's been many players raving about Ethan Bonner, and I think it's going to be really important to keep an eye on him. But a lot of people are counting out Nick Needham. They're forgetting Nick Needham was the best nickel corner in the entire NFL just 2 seasons ago. And then he was forced to play into the boundary when Byron Jones got hurt. And when Byron Jones got hurt, he filled in excellently on the boundary, I might add. And then he got midseason towards Achilles. And now last year was his first year back from that. It really was. And he didn't come back till midseason. Everybody's like, oh, he didn't look the same. He didn't have the same burst. Yeah, Achilles injuries are like that. Look at what happened with Cam Akers. Cam Akers came back in 13 weeks or something like that. He came back and he looked like absolute dog duty. And then he came back the next season with the Rams and looked really good. And then, of course, he fell off after that. But it just happens. Achilles injuries take longer. It takes longer for your mentals also to be able to trust yourself in just planting that foot and taking off, which is, kind of the reason why I am not 100% sure Jalen Phillips even plays this season. Yeah, he looks good doing his lateral movements on the side and training camp and blah, blah, blah. But it's more than just being able to physically heal your Achilles. You also have to mentally heal yourself to be like, I can still push off from this. I could still, go and get it. You have to trust your body. And that's something that Nick Needham, he openly talked about a little bit. He's like, yeah, it is tough to trust yourself. Brandon Jones last year, when he came back from his ACL, he's like, yeah, it took me a little bit to start trusting my knee again. And that happens. It's a mental thing. And you can't blame him. This is his time to prove that he is still that dude. That he wasn't just a product of Flores. And look, he very well might have been. But that's my dude. And I'm going to stick by my boy Nick Needham. He's still that dude. He's going to go and get it. I'm rooting for both him and Bonner. Obviously, I'm rooting for every single player on this team to do great things. But that's my dude. I got Nick Needham being the number 4 corner. And then when Cam Smith comes back, it's going to be between him and Bonner for the 5th corner spot. And I think they're only going to take 6 this season. But that's going to be a position to watch depth-wise. Obviously, Ramsey and Fuller and Kader Kohu are going to be a solid 3 right there. They're not going to be cut. They're going to be starting. And then Cam Smith, he's going to be in the mix, whether he's in the top or the bottom of the depth chart. He was a 2nd round pick just a year ago. You're not going to give up on him after just a year and a half. All right, now for the last position that we're going to talk about, it's going to be defensive tackle. And this is going to be an interesting one because obviously we have Zach Sealer, Calais Campbell as our 2 starters, or 2 of our 3 starters rather. And then you have the nose tackle or the 3rd D tackle position that Benito Jones currently holds the starting position on the depth chart. However, one can argue that when Teair Tart wants to be that dude, he can be better than Benito Jones. And we've seen it. And we've seen that's going to be an interesting battle there. There's also going to be an interesting battle behind them to see who makes the roster, because likelihood is we're only going to take 4 or 5 of those guys. And there's a solid 8 or 9 that I feel good with there. And Brandon Peely still back there. Deshaun Hand still back there. I feel good about all those guys. And that's going to be a really nice position battle to watch, is the interior defensive line besides Sealer, besides Calais Campbell. Just every single one from Benito Jones down to Brandon Peely is going to be really fun to watch. And yeah, like that's what I got for y'all today. I'm going to have another video dropping about some players that you should really keep an eye on. Not necessarily has to do with position battles, more just for their development and some guys that could play key roles throughout the season that may not be popping out on your screen. All right, guys, deuces. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell, get notifications for our videos. Love y'all.